I work in the State Department at the Political Military Affairs Bureau, Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement. And this week, we released To Walk the Earth in Safety, which is basically the publication that chronicles the U.S. government's efforts in conventional weapons destruction. Conventional weapons destruction is a broad umbrella that includes humanitarian mine action, small arms, light weapons, including going after man-portable air defense missiles, physical security and stockpile management, stockpile reduction, and things of that nature. The publication chronicles the efforts of not only the Department of State, but also USAID and the Department of Defense, as we do this in a joint partnership. As you probably have read in the publication, the United States has given over $2.5 billion to conventional weapon destruction type projects since 1993 to over 90 countries. That effort, along with those of our international partners, has helped 16 countries declare themselves free of the impact of landmines, and it has a huge impact on civil society. Just 15 years ago, if you go back and look at landmine casualties from landmines and explosive remnants of war, there were over 10,000 casualties a year in 1999. That has been reduced by 60% now to just under 4,000 casualties a year. There were 25 people being injured or dying a day. Now it's down to 10. A remarkable improvement, but still illuminates there's a lot more work to be done. And we're seeing that work getting done in various countries that we're working in and funding through our implementing partners. As in Vietnam, we're seeing the impact of our work on the ground, clearing pathways for children to be able to go to school. In one of my trips to Southeast Asia in general, I was in Cambodia, where a school had been built, but it had been built adjacent to a minefield. And they needed the help of the international community to help clear those mines around that new school so children could play in the schoolyards. We also are working in places like helping with the reduction of ammunition depots that have the risk of unplanned explosions because of poor management or storage facility issues in different countries. That has a huge impact on civil society. So the work that we're doing around the world is felt, whether it's based on agricultural development, commercial development. We see that there is a need to clear these things that have that kill and injure well after conflicts are over. A lot of the U.S. focus thus far has been on cleaning up a lot of the U.S.-caused ERW. We see those efforts, especially when we look at Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands, clearing the munitions and explosive remnants of war from the Vietnam conflict, as well as World War I when you look at the Pacific Islands. Some of that work also occurs in southern Iraq and obviously in Afghanistan also. We see a lot of work that we do in the Western Hemisphere in Colombia, where demining where 31 of 32 departments in Colombia are contaminated with landmines that are very difficult to find, and we're funding projects there. A lot of work in Africa, not just on the issues of humanitarian mine action, but on small arms, light weapons, because the trafficking and the use of small arms and light weapons, man-portable air defense missiles, have a huge impact on national security interest. So we're working very hard in Africa and the Sahel to curb the illicit flow of weapons, to help with good stockpile management practices and stockpile reduction where necessary. As well as we're working in places like southern Turkey to help with the humanitarian issues associated with some of the conflict in northern Syria. So a lot of work is being done. This publication chronicles that work. It's just a small part of the overall U.S. government effort that's making a significant impact on the lives of civil society in so many different situations, whether it's internally displaced persons in Iraq as a result of the conflict, or some of our longer legacy of war issues that remain an issue that needs to be cleaned up so that the casualty rate is reduced on civil society. So, quick opening statement there. Happy to take questions from the audience.
As we move to the Q&A portion of the event, please state your name and publication for the transcript and wait for the microphone, which could be coming from either side. Please ask your questions. Right down front here.
Mr. Brown.
Wait for the microphone.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. Brown, Owen Fair.
State your name and publication.
I'll do that, thanks. Owen Fairclough from CCTV.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, as a relative newcomer to this, looking at the documentation, it strikes me that MANPADS, portable missiles, seem to be almost like a new frontier in this. Is that the case, that they are becoming perhaps the biggest danger?
From a U.S. government perspective, we have always looked at this sector from a conventional weapons destruction perspective. So the whole toolkit of things, humanitarian mine action, and explosive missile war removal, which everyone knows about, but also small arms light weapons, which includes MANPADS from our efforts. So we have a long history of working on these issues. So we don't see small arms light weapons and MANPADS as a new issue, because it dates back at least a decade that we've been focused on these issues. Part of my office is we have a MANPADS task force, which is totally focused on curbing the proliferation of MANPADS and working to make sure that they don't impact the international aviation community. So I don't see it as new, but is there probably increasing threats, and are there more MANPADS out there that we need to be focused on? Absolutely, but that's probably true of the small arms light weapons perspective in any case, either way.
One more question, if I may. The country that obviously stands out in all of this is North Korea. The US is moving towards complying with the UN's Convention on Anti-Personnel Mines and is removing ordnance from most of these countries, if I understand it, bar the Korean Peninsula. A lay reader might look at that and think that effectively the US is saying that North Korean lives don't really matter.
No. Well, first of all, from a U.S. perspective, the U.S. made several moves in regards to antipersonnel landmines, I think, which was specifically your reference here. Prior to 2010, we first removed all persistent landmines from our inventory. That means that mines that did not self-destruct or self-deactivate were removed from the inventory. Subsequent to that, as I've stated up front, we contribute about $2.5 billion to humanitarian mine action in about 90 countries. So those programs are ongoing. And last year, we made a number of announcements regarding changes in our antipersonnel landmine policy. At the review conference in Maputo, Mozambique, we announced that we would no longer look to produce or acquire landmines, and would look to destroy those. We would not acquire them to replace those that were expiring. Then a further announcement in September, we announced that we would basically observe the key principles of the Ottawa Convention everywhere except for Korea, which I think is what you're referring to specifically. We would not assist, encourage, or induce any country to use anti-personnel landmines. We would not use anti-personnel, other than Korea, we would not use anti-personnel landmines outside of Korea. And we would also look to destroy those anti-personnel landmines not needed for the defense of Korea. So from a U.S.-Korea perspective, we are committed to the alliance and the defense of the Republic of Korea. That is a commitment that has been long-standing, and we intend to continue at this point.
Hi, hello. Thank you for doing this. My name is Yukiko Toyoda from Kyodo News. Could you give me the update of the cooperation with the Japanese government, especially in terms of clearing the mine, especially in Southeast Asia? Because Japanese government is really making a special effort to send a special mission to clear the mines in the kind of Cambodia or other country. So is there any kind of new field the U.S. and Japan are pushing the collaboration in that field?
There is quite a bit of cooperation and collaboration of the U.S. and Japan in humanitarian mine action. As a matter of fact, Japan was the chair until October for the last 2 years of the Mine Advisory Support Group, which is an ad hoc group of donor countries that are focused on mine action. The U.S. is also part of that group. We worked very closely with the Japanese chair as they worked to coordinate the activities of the donor community. We coordinate with them in the field. We have some projects in which are jointly funded. I think one in Vietnam, where jointly funded projects there with the Japanese, where we pay an aspect of the project and they pay another part of it. And we're looking to collaborate even more. Some part of South-South cooperation, where they're cooperating with a number of countries in Southeast Asia, as well as Colombia and South America. They're working on different issues to see how we can collaborate and export the best lessons learned from both donor countries to the sector as a whole.
Thank you. My name is Diana Casaneda from 1924. Mr. Brown, could you tell me more about the U.S. Air Force in the Western Hemisphere, specifically in Colombia? And I got a second question. The report named the pre-agreement, the peace pre-agreement between the Colombian government and the FARC, and I want to know if this pre-agreement could help this fight against the crime and the illegal traffic of weapons.
Okay, so some of the, first of all, the U.S. government efforts in Colombia, I'll address that from a conventional weapons destruction perspective, which is my purview. We have programs in Colombia since 2009. I think we've donated a little over $21 million to Colombia for humanitarian, or conventional weapons destruction, primarily humanitarian mine action. That work is ongoing. In 2014, I think that our figure for the U.S. government was about $7.7 million, of which about 6.4 came from the Department of State. And that is funding humanitarian mine action, helping to buy equipment for the Colombian military, as well as funding civilian demining organizations like the Halo Trust, which is UK-based. So that work, as Colombia works on the peace agreement, I think, which is what you're leading to. As I was saying this morning, I did a live interview with a Colombian radio news outlet. That work, in as far as applying to mines and the effort that's ongoing, we are happy to continue. We see Colombia as a great partner in that, and we know that that's an aspect of the peace negotiations. And the second part of your question, I'm sorry, you had.
No, it was about that. So about the peace process. So if you can give me an extra information about Honduras.
Honduras, we had a program there. I think we gave Honduras $500,000 in FY13-14 time frame for weapons. Curbing the illicit flow of weapons and some stockpile management type issues there. And then we also gave funding to Mines Advisory Group for some expert advice or advising afterwards. And that's been the extent of our program in Honduras. We do not currently fund Honduras in the current year.
Okay, come down here.
Thank you very much. I'm Iftikhar Hussain. I work for Voice of America at Diva Radio and TV. We broadcast to the Pakistan-Afghanistan border region, that area. I just wonder if you could elaborate an insight into the Afghanistan landmine program. What kind of cooperation do you have there? It's one of the issues there. And the second question is, what kind of cooperation do you have with the governments there? If you have anything with the Pakistan going on, most of the material to Afghanistan to landmines has been coming from Pakistan. So in general, also in that particular context.
Okay, so for to speak specifically on Afghanistan, we have been working in Afghanistan since the late 80s, early 90s on humanitarian mine action programs. It is our largest program. We provide about $22 million a year to Afghanistan for humanitarian mine action, battle area clearance, and explosive remnants of war removal. That is an ongoing effort where we receive great help from the government of Afghanistan. The national authority there, the Director of Mine Action in Afghanistan, manages, and they're a very close partner with the United States and the efforts going on there. In regards to I guess your question on Pakistan and the material coming in, I think you may be referring more to IEDs, which we are not specifically focused on IEDs in our office. We're focused on the landmine aspect of that, and IEDs has been a focus of the Department of Defense.
Come down here.
My name is King Savan. I'm from Voice of America, Lao language. Could you tell me how many countries involved in this process? And if Russia chip in the funding?
So first of all, from a U.S. perspective, we are funding projects in about 36 to 38 countries around the world. They vary in type, whether it's some may be just victims assistance issues, some of them may be stockpile management or small arms light weapons type programs. I don't know the full list of donor countries that are actually donating to this effort. The donor countries donate, many donate bilaterally to different programs, and many go through the UN, through the Volunteer Trust Fund for their donations. So I don't have specific visibility on the Russian effort right now.
Okay, thank you. Jason Jang from Yonhap News Agency of South Korea. You know, the Korean border, which is called Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, is one of the world's most heavily fortified borders. And the South Korean President Park Geun-hye has called for the establishment of an international peace park along this DMZ. I'm wondering if you are aware of this project and if you would be willing to provide any support for this project. Thank you.
We have, thus far, we have not, I was not aware of that specific project, and we have not been contacted on that. We look at requests for U.S. government funding to help if the programs and the projects are going to have a civil impact or humanitarian impact on society. That's where we look to do our primary work, is where our funding is going to have the highest humanitarian impact, and we would do that in close consultation with the Republic of Korea.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, this event is now concluded. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.